going to just go through some terms that we use. So in data collection, that's the unit we're in right now, or we're just talking about data. There's different ways to sample our population. So we could do random samples where everybody has an equal chance of being selected. So remember we talked about sometimes it's impossible to survey the whole population to collect some data. So we just need a sample. So just collecting random samples is the best way to do it, because it helps ensure there's a more representative sample. So your sample kind of represents your population a little better. So maybe in a class of 10 students and we wanted to select a random sample, we could assign everybody a number from 1 to 10 and just like get a random number generator to pick 4 numbers. Okay. I just said all this stuff. Okay, so that's just some ways to sample the population. Which other one did I want to show you guys? Is this the same one? Yeah, it's the same one. Okay, timeout. But sometimes we might not want to do a random sample of the population. So sometimes we might want a different sample, like something that maybe is a little more specific. So let's say we're talking about plants and we wanted to check out the average height of this flower. And so we looked at these 10 plants and we wanted to just check 5 of them for our sample. Maybe instead of assigning each one a number and just going on a random number generator, like maybe there's something different about the plants. Like maybe 4 of them were in the sun all the time and 6 of them were in the shade. So just picking them at random maybe is not what we want to do. So maybe we want to like split them into groups and get a random sample from each group. So maybe there's like, and same with like, if you think about your school, so say in high school, we have grades 9, 10, 11, 12. Maybe if we don't want to just randomly pick people from the whole school, maybe we want to pick 20 grade 9s, 20 grade 10s, 20 grade 11s, and 20 grade 12s. So sometimes you don't want it to be totally random. You might want to have like different groups. Yeah, which we sometimes call strata in data terminology. So this could be like a stratified sample instead of a random sample. Oh yeah, and like often you would want that strata to be proportional. So there's only 4 plants in the sun and 6 in the shade. Well, maybe we'll just pick 3 from the shade and 2 from the sun, since there's more in the shade. So lots of different ways to sample the population, but those are really good ways. So the stratified sample and the random sample. There's ways that aren't as good. So like voluntary samples, things like that. But sometimes you don't really have a choice because you don't have the resources to do some of those methods for sampling the population. Overall, we're trying to reduce the bias. So when you survey a bunch of people and you use the results to make an inference about the whole population, you want to get the best, the most accurate results. So you want to try to eliminate all the bias that you can. So bias is this unintended influence on the results of the survey or the experiment. So there's lots of different types of bias. There's like response bias, selection bias, non-response bias. And they have to do with things like, if you did a voluntary sample, maybe you stood at one entrance to the school and you surveyed all the people that came in that entrance. Well, maybe that's everybody that takes the bus to school because that's like right where the bus stop is. So you're missing everybody that walks and drives. And what if your survey was about transportation? So like, I don't know, there's lots of ways bias can creep into a survey unintentionally. So response bias is like when you ask a question, maybe it has a little bias in it. So like, gym class is fun. Hey, what's your favorite class? So you've just mentioned a class that's really fun. And do you really think that chocolate is good for you? Like asking a question in a certain way that kind of leads people to a certain answer, that's called response bias. You don't want to do that. And selection bias is when, maybe you have eliminated a whole bunch of people from your survey. Non-response bias. So lots of times, like if you asked for someone to complete a survey, like maybe you were going to mail out a survey or send it through the internet. Some people choose not to respond to their survey. Or a phone call. How many times have people received a phone call asking you to complete a survey? And lots of people don't complete it. And maybe you were chosen at random. So now you're kind of influencing their survey by not responding. Yeah, and here's just another example of like, it depends on what you're collecting data on or experimenting with. Like this sports example, if you don't have all the balls inflated the same level, you could have some bias. If you're checking like, I don't know, shots and like you wanted to see how many baskets someone could make in a row, and someone's ball is inflated to a different level than someone else. So many forms of bias can creep in on you. You're just trying to reduce them. So you're always trying to eliminate bias, but it's always going to creep in there. And in this class, because we have like very limited resources, bias is going to creep in all over the place. So we're going to collect some data and we're going to analyze it. And we'll know in the back of our minds, hey, number one, our sample is going to be just people in this class or people that choose to complete the survey or whatever we're collecting data on. But we know what our bias is, and that's important too. So we can like, when we look at our results, we can have that in the back of our mind.